Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and I just went to the dentist and I do not have any cavities. For those of you that have been here for a while, you know that I just hate going to the dentist, but I do go, and with the current events going on, it was quite the production. I had to like sit in my car and then they send you a text and tell you when you can come in and all of that. This is a strange, crazy world we live in now. Okay, I wanted to start with this. Binance US, Catherine Coley, who's the CEO over there and used to be at Ripple, has they've opened its doors to Floridian crypto traders. I was hoping they were going to say Georgia, but they said Florida. That has to open up a tremendous market for them. Florida is a big deal, I would imagine. But to Catherine Coley, if you're listening, I want Georgia. I would love to be able to use Binance here in Georgia, and we still don't have it, but I know she's working on it. Okay. And by the way, I mentioned, I think a day or so ago, I have changed my whole setup. I bought myself a desk and an actual office chair. And so now I can recline, and I'm looking at this a whole different way than I have for the last 2 years. And so here we go. Now, today's video, there's a real theme that is going on across the world right now, and we're going to hit it. First, I wanted to show you this, and normally, I wanted to take a time out here for a second. XRP Crypto Wolf has been one of the most consistent people that has provided information to this channel over the last couple of years. And today, he provided so much that I finally said, you know what? I'm just going to highlight him, and I'm going to go through his Twitter feed and show you some of the things that he has put out. It's if you don't, go follow at XRP Crypto Wolf on Twitter. The guy does a great job. XRP daily active addresses are increasing in a relatively high, according to the cryptocurrency analytics platform Sentiment Feed, I guess that's called. Okay. The number of XRP daily active addresses recently climbed to a 7-day high of 9,499 on August 24th. And then there was this. There's a whole bunch of things he put out. The Bank of International Settlements said most central banks are considering hybrid setups where CBDCs make a direct claim on a central bank, but customer activity is dealt with within the private sector. CBDC is growing in digitized and innovative economies. And then you go down a little further. BIS said central banks are talking positive about digital currencies in greater numbers than ever before. A lot of BIS stuff here. Bank of International Settlement said public interest in central bank digital currencies surpasses Bitcoin. The pandemic accelerated global efforts to issue CBDCs. Global internet searches for CBDC surpassed searches for Facebook's Libra and Bitcoin. And then this one, there's another BIS. Okay, a lot of BIS. Then this is the last one I wanted to show you. R3 CEO David Rudder said the pandemic has heightened a need for transparent, scalable business processes, and that digital transformation at the industry level is the only path forward. Countless industries are already using blockchain and other digital tech. Okay, we're going to move along. And you're going to notice an overall theme here. The theme is that central banks and countries are about to get into digital currencies. You're also going to notice a theme of the Fed and inflation and gold and silver and treasuries, how treasuries are not the place to be anymore, and digital assets are. I mean, this is all laid out. I was seeing it left and right today. And also how digital assets can help us move into a new system. People's Bank, this is from Michael at VAL5 Links. The People's Bank of China is planning to put its digital currency to use at the 2022 Winter Olympic Games in Beijing. And then you got this from XRP ADX Lighting the Way. Sent me this. Drama from Ian Northing at IANBINS. Drama. Russia calls on fellow BRICS countries to dump U.S. dollar in favor of trade in national currencies. And then we have this from Gold Telegraph. According to the Federal Reserve data, the top 10% of Americans by wealth owned 87% of all stock outstanding in the first quarter. Now, the Federal Reserve is going to let inflation run hot and debase the dollar. Let me read that again. The Federal Reserve is going to let inflation run hot and debase the dollar. Are you still wondering why wealth inequality is skyrocketing, folks? If you hear nothing in this video except this right here, now the Federal Reserve is going to let inflation run hot and debase the dollar. And we're going more into that today. Folks, in an inflation scenario, traditionally it's been gold, silver, the Swiss franc, U.S. treasuries. Now we have digital assets, the first new asset class since the 1600s. And there's a finite amount of XRP, Bitcoin, and a few others. Now, when they start letting this inflation go, folks, you better be in precious metals and digital assets where there can't be more made. Because if you're not, you're gonna get burned. And I'll show you another high profile guy saying that U.S. treasuries are a joke, which is what I've said for over 2 years here. Well, traditionally, that's where, especially older people, they put their money in treasuries when things get scary. This time, I believe it's different. And I've been saying it for over 2 years. And I'm going to show you somebody else that's saying it. And then you've got this from Super Crypto. The big boy is telling you pandemic is an opposite is an op. I don't know what he means by op, to reset the world. The pandemic represents a rare but narrow window of opportunity to reflect, reimagine, and reset our world. This is Klaus Schwab, who runs the World Economic Forum. And then you have this from Ian Northing. Boston Fed is looking at 30 to 40 blockchain networks for digital dollar experiments. And that's from Yahoo. Then we've got this from Zero Hedge. Mortgage delinquencies soar to decade high. We have a complete and utter nightmare headed our way. There's going to be a silver lining, and the only silver lining is going to be for those out there who spotted what was coming. You and I, if you're listening to this, you spotted what was coming, and you knew that something in your gut, this just hasn't made sense. And it hasn't made sense since the financial crisis of 2008. And for those that are paying attention, that's why, the irony is a lot of those people that were bailed out in 2008, those are probably some of the very people who, because they did not get to feel the burn, did not learn and did not have their eyes open to what's coming. And that that's the great thing about getting burned in life. When you get burned, you know not to touch that stove. And you also start to have your eyes open about other dangers. And those of us that have been around, that's how we spotted digital assets. Many of us discovered gold and silver first, but it's digital assets and gold and silver, folks. Always has been. Now, Gold Watch. Must watch Milton Friedman on inflation and the money supply. Inflation is like alcoholism. In both cases, when you start drinking or when you start printing too much money, the good effects come first. The bad effects come later. Now, I may talk a little bit through this because I don't want to get a copyright hit on this, and it's got a little bit of music in it. So just watch this.
73, Japanese housewives going to market were faced with an unpleasant fact. The cash in their purses seemed to be losing its value.
Darn right.
Prices were starting to soar as the awful story of inflation began to unfold once again. The Japanese government knew what to do. What's more, they were prepared to do it. When it was all over, economists were able to record precisely what had happened. In 1971, the quantity of money started to grow more rapidly. As always happens, inflation wasn't affected for a time.
1971 is when Nixon took us off the gold standard, I think.
In early 73, the government reacted. It started to cut monetary growth, but inflation continued to soar for a time. The delayed reaction made 1973 a very tough year of recession. Inflation tumbled only when the government demonstrated its determination to keep monetary growth in check. It took 5 years to squeeze inflation out of the system. Japan had attained relative stability. Unfortunately, there's no way to avoid the difficult road the Japanese had to follow before they could have both low inflation and a healthy economy.
Yeah.
First,
they
had to live through a recession until slow monetary growth had its delayed effect on inflation. Inflation is just like alcoholism. In both cases, when you start drinking or when you start printing too much money, the good effects come first. The bad effects only come later. That's why, in both cases, there's a strong temptation to overdo it, to drink too much and to print too much money. When it comes to the cure, it's the other way around. When you stop drinking or when you stop printing money, the bad effects come first and the good effects only come later. That's why it's so hard to persist with the cure.
That's a smart man right there. Now, so here's where it all started getting interesting. And this is from today. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell is expected to bolster expectations of inflation in a keynote speech Thursday. That may be bad for the dollar, but good for Bitcoin or XRP. Okay. And then I had tweeted this out. Digital assets, gold and silver, period. Cash is trash. Cash is trash came from, what's the guy's name? I'm drawing the blank on his name. I think it's the guy, Ray Dalio that said that when they were at, I think he was in Davos at the World Economic Forum. I think he was at the Davos thing, but anyway, he said cash is trash. Ray Dalio, I believe, is the guy that runs Bridgewater Associates. But cash is trash. And then I was tweeting this out. Powell set to deliver profoundly consequential speech changing how the Fed views inflation. I mean, these guys get crazier and crazier with what they're willing to do. Powell, and it says, Jerome Powell will speak Thursday during a virtual version of the Fed's annual Jackson Hole, Wyoming conference. He is expected to outline what could be the central bank's most active efforts ever to spur inflation back to a healthy level. Average inflation targeting means the Fed will allow inflation to run higher than normal for a period of time. The effort will be the reverse of former Fed Chairman Paul Volcker rate hikes instituted to quash inflation in the 1980s. Folks, if you've, I don't know if I need to say this in a different language or what. If you are not paying attention to anything that I've ever shown you, they're telling you that they are about to let inflation go. And let me tell you what, these jokers have been printing money since the financial crisis and before that. And that is all they've been doing. If they really do let this go, this is going to be ugly. If you don't own gold, silver, and crypto, specifically probably Bitcoin and XRP, maybe XLM, you are out of your ever-loving mind. I mean, I'm just saying, if you're going to get something, get the ones that are in limited amount. Okay. Now, so these guys, this is Kitco News. Kitco's the gold company. These guys are commenting on Chairman Powell and how this will all go. Listen to this.
Into Jackson Hole's symposium next week. What did you make of last week's Fed announcement?
The announcement itself, I thought, was on par with what I expected. It was the reaction that I felt was a typical knee-jerk reaction. And it's concern with how the Fed is going to move forward. And of course, this week we're going to have the first virtual symposium in the record in the history of that economic symposium. It's going to be held virtually. And what's going to be interesting is the topic itself is navigating ahead in the next decade and what are the monetary implications. So what that says to me is that when you've got all of the major central banks getting together, they recognize the need for a long-term plan rather than what's the economy going to look like next year. They're actually looking out in the next decade. What that tells me is that they know that the crisis we're in is not going to be resolved overnight. Mm-hmm. And so that's what's so critically important. I believe that it could have a detrimental effect on the U.S. dollar. If it does, we will see gold take off, and that will indicate the bottom of this recent correction.
Policy now.
Okay. I believe that this this thing that they're doing, that the chairman is doing, what did they call it again? Look at this right here, Bob. This just popped up. American Airlines is cutting 19,000 jobs when federal aid expires in October. Folks, let me tell you what, this is getting scary. But here's what they said. They said he's set to deliver a profoundly consequential speech in changing how the Fed views inflation. They're about to let it go, folks. This is terrifying. Now, it's important. I've talked about it on this channel before, but it is very important that you understand how people have viewed this stuff in history. When people are scared and they're worried about inflation, these types of things, one of the things they head to is a government created thing called TIPS. It's Treasury Inflation Protected, I think it's Inflation Protection Bonds. Well, all of these government creations are a joke. And now they're a joke more than ever because these guys have obviously put themselves so far in a corner that now they're going to do something even crazier. So, but the point is that traditionally when people get terrified, they go to gold, silver, U.S. Treasury bonds, the Swiss franc, and just a small handful of things that they think are the safe haven asset class. Well, along come digital assets. And I don't think any of this is by coincidence. I think the federal government knows all about it. I think that it's part of the plan. I think what they're doing is part of the roll into the digital asset space. And I think it's the greatest financial opportunity in the history of finance, period. I think XRP is at ground zero of that opportunity. I think Bitcoin, as I've said before, will benefit as well. Bitcoin, because it was the first, is going to be allowed to slide through the door. But XRP is the one, and it has always been the one, and it's the greatest digital asset ever created. Now, listen, this is Robert Kiyosaki. This is on Kitco News as well. This is Robert Kiyosaki. This is the guy that wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad, okay? Listen to what he says. He's talking to the baby boomers, the people who all of this time have thought that U.S. treasuries were this great investment and this great safe haven. Listen to what he says.
All right. Now, the problem with my generation is they think what is safe are U.S. treasuries. You know, what idiots? Yeah. What idiots? Can't they say that treasuries are how the Fed and the Treasury manipulate the market? And they've wiped out savers. They've wiped out pensions. Look, this is my latest 2020 book. It's called Who Stole My Pension? They suck our pensions dry. And the baby boomers had better have woke up. You know, they're saving their money. They're buying a house. They're putting money in their U.S. T-bills and those money market certificates. Are you effing nuts? Mm-hmm. And you look at your generation, they screwed you guys big time. Do you know what I mean? Student loans, I don't know what else they've done.
So anyway, I just wanted you to see that clip because he's telling you, and this guy's smart. He's no dummy, but he's a big gold silver guy, but he's also a Bitcoin guy. But one day he's going to realize that it was XRP, but I think he's going to do just fine with his Bitcoin too. Now, Michelle Vandenberg sent me this. I wanted to just show you this. What I'm noticing is Ripple will tweet something out, and then a month later or so, they'll retweet it and they'll make a comment almost like they're saying, you guys didn't pick up on this line. Let us remind you so that you do pick up on it. The digital asset investor was born at night, but not last night, baby. And so, as Kid Rock says, and so I do pick up on these little things. And this is one of them. Blockchain payments could have provided a more effective way for the U.S. government to distribute stimulus funds, notes Barry. This is Barry Eichengreen. Okay. He's the professor, at Berkeley. And he was also like an advisor to the, I believe it was the IMF or the World Economic Forum. It was one of them. I looked it up. Okay. And then finally, I want to show you this because there are no coincidences, folks. Zero Hedge tweeted this out. We are, in my opinion, we are at a very pivotal moment in the history of finance that's on par with the creation of the Federal Reserve. But I think that this time they have the real solution, and it's called digital assets. And I think XRP is one of the linchpins of the entire thing. From Zero Hedge, in November of 1910, 6 men met at the Jekyll Island Club, which is in Georgia, where I live, to write a plan to reform the nation's banking system. The meeting and its purpose were closely guarded secrets, and participants did not admit that the meeting occurred until the 1930s. I believe the same thing is going to happen in the current events. I believe there are all sorts of things that are in play behind the scenes, many of which if you've been listening to this channel, you probably have pieced this all together in your mind. But I believe we are going through a similar thing right now. But I believe it's bigger than just the United States. I believe it involves Europe and the world. And I believe that digital assets, specifically Ripple and XRP, are right in the middle of it. And I believe the history books will prove us right on that. But this is the article. I encourage everyone to go and read this. This is on federalreservehistory.org. It's an essay, Jekyll Island Conference. I'll read this first part to you. It's kind of, it says these are the people that met, and all of them represented people like the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and JP Morgan and all of these kind of people, all the people that had all the money. All the money of the world. They met at Jekyll Island Club off the coast of Georgia to write a plan to reform the nation's banking system. The meeting and its purpose were closely guarded secrets, and participants did not admit that the meeting occurred until the 1930s. But the plan, written on Jekyll Island, laid a foundation for what would eventually be the Federal Reserve System. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, and tell your friends and family that the world was changed at Jekyll Island back in 1910. And I believe the world's changing again right now. Thank you for listening.
Every day, billions of people around the world are mocked, ridiculed, laughed at, and embarrassed by their friends, family, and even strangers. These people go through their days knowing there are secrets being kept from them. They hear the faint whispers behind closed doors. The information and knowledge is held very close and only shared with others who were fortunate enough to find out. Feeling lost, rejected, and ostracized, these people give up, never finding out what digital assets the digital asset investor holds. But there is hope. Join the free Digital Asset Investor email newsletter and find out what digital assets he owns each month, including investments he's considering. Click the link in the description of this video or go to digitalassetinvestornewsletter.com. Put an end to your days of gloom and depression. Join the greatest free digital asset email newsletter ever created.